Hey everyone, I'm Erin and welcome to the Cardboard Republic. We are freshly-ish back from Gen Con, and so we're gonna tell you all about the stuff we got. It's gonna be kind of long. At the end, we're gonna pile up all the games and see if they are taller than me. I have a suspicion that they will be. Okay, let's get started right away. First up is the second edition of Mansions of Madness. This is the Fantasy Flight title where they just got rid of one of the big, it's the keeper role. It's essentially a GM for the game, and they replaced it with an app. I'm curious to see how that works out. Fantasy Flight has a decent history of using apps in their games with XCOM and everything, but I also know that the reception to that was very mixed, so I'll be curious to see how this one plays. Next up is Smugglers, and just for the record, I'm just pulling these out of our pile in no particular order, so this is not like my list of ranked games from Gen Con. I don't even think I could do that if I tried. So Smugglers is a game about smuggling things. What's cool is that in order to see if you're like successful or not, you actually roll up these little balls of clay and roll them through the board to see if they like fit through holes in a fence, I think. It's really neat looking. It's probably gonna be full of cat hair in like 2 seconds in our house, but I'm curious to see how it actually works out because I could see it going like super well or super not. Then we have the expansion to Boss Monster. This is one that Ryan picked up. Boss Monster is not my kind of game, but this apparently adds aliens to it and he's excited. The Game of Trains is another one. It's a very small, obviously, little numbers game. We'll see. It's sort of a little more abstract than is usually my jam, but I will give it a shot. Next is Islebound. This is set in the same universe as Above and Below, and it has the same artwork, but it doesn't play exactly the same. I am a little worried, I will admit, that a lot of these games, Above and Below and Islebound, and I think Near and Far is the next one coming out, that they're gonna be too similar. So I hope that it plays sufficiently differently from the other two to really be able to like, you know, stake out its own ground. I'm not sure though. Then Killer Snails. It's about killer snails, and it was designed by a scientist, and I really like snails. So I was pumped about this one. This was all me. I bought it all on my own. Ryan was like, "What are you doing?" But snails. Valley of the Kings: The Last Rites is a standalone expansion to Valley of the Kings. I haven't tried Valley of the Kings, but I've heard such good things about it from a lot of my gamer friends. So we'll see. I'm gonna try to play Valley of the Kings, like the original first, before I tackle this one. I will report back. Another little game, Three Wishes, is a hidden information card management game about trying to come up with the best 3 wishes you can for a genie. It seems fun. It's not always my favorite style of gameplay, but it seems fast enough that like I can definitely try this and hopefully get into it. Simurgh is a heavy game, but it's super fun to say Simurgh. I hope that's the way you say it well, I don't want to be wrong, and also because that's super fun. This is a game about dragons. You play as noble families trying to breed dragons. It's resource management. It is super Euro. It's so Euro. It came out at Essen. I am so excited to try this. I mean, it's definitely a hefty game, but I can't wait. I want to breed the dragons. Strife, Shadows, and Steam is the next one, and I have to hold this very, very carefully because it's in a tin and it will pick up glare. This is a standalone sequel to Strife, the original game, which was one of our Laurel nominees last year. So we loved that one. I'm excited to try this one. I always love to see what comes out next after a game is so beloved by us. Can they keep it up? And then we have 2 tiny little games. Pairs is a game that a lot of people have, but we didn't. So we just decided to get a copy. It's just a little pub game, like one of those very, very light but social games. And then Little Drop of Poison, which I actually don't know much about, and the box is not really helping me figure it out, but there are weasels and rats, so we'll see what happens. Garbage Day is not a game that I would have initially wanted, but it actually seems really cool. It's a game about not wanting to take out the trash. So players are stacking cards on top of this little thing, and you're trying to make it so the cards don't fall over. It's very quick and obviously very light, but I can see this being challenging. Paperback is next. This is a game that we've talked about a lot on this channel and on our site in general, but we never actually had our own copy. So we fixed that. Now we do. It is a kind of deck building style game, but instead of building like a medieval castle, you are building words, which is neat because I love words. Dr. Eureka is another game that I had a chance to play with a friend's kids, and it was super fun. It's a little game about building, I don't know, test tubes full of chemicals, but really you're pouring marbles into different test tubes and trying to get them to arrange in a certain pattern. It has a little bit of a dexterity component to it, but mostly it's like a logic puzzle, and it was a lot of fun. I think I won, but like not by much. Her kids are pretty bright. So I'm excited to try this one with adults too and see if I still win against them. It's really loud too. Royals is a game that I haven't had a chance to play yet. It is a set collection and kind of area control or kingdom building game. And it looks really interesting. It's a little bit on the lighter side for this style of game. So I'll be curious to see how it plays with a wider range of people than I normally might play a game that has a cover like this with. Super sulky king though. He's so mad. Mystic Vale is one that I had heard a lot of going into Gen Con because it uses a really unique kind of mechanic. A lot of the cards are transparent and you overlay them. Think like if you know the game Gloom, where the cards, they are clear, you can see through them, and so the things that are on the cards on the bottom of your stack still, have effects even after you put something on top of them. This is a game that uses that. It's not quite a deck builder, but there's some hand management. There's a lot of things going on with the cards, which should be interesting to see how that actually works out. I haven't seen this mechanic before except in Gloom, so I'm curious to see how it works in a game that is a little more, I guess, weighty. Speaking of weighty, just kidding. It's Codenames Pictures. Like, you don't even need to read now. Codenames Pictures is essentially Codenames, but with pictures. You're still spies. You're trying to associate the different pictures on your little board to give clues or to interpret clues. I think if you haven't played Codenames and you don't know what I'm talking about, just stop, go play Codenames, and come back. We will wait. Then play Codenames Pictures. Scoundrel Society is another small, kind of light game. It's about a big gathering of high-class con artists. You're all trying to steal from each other. I'm not generally a fan of games like this that have a really heavy take that sort of thing going on, but I really love the theme to this one. A bunch of like high society con artists getting together to play a game. It's really inviting to me. Get Rich Quick is an interesting game that is kind of a replacement to the Game of Life. It takes a lot of the random elements of the Game of Life and just throws those out. And it replaces them with this interesting simultaneous card action mechanic. So you're all putting down your cards at the same time, and you get bonuses or penalties depending on what you play. It seems interesting. I'm always fascinated by how those games that we played as kids can be updated to fit into the hobby as we kind of know it and experience it now. And I think that this could potentially do that. The Big Book of Madness is a cooperative deck building game about a bunch of students who go into the wrong section of their magical library and unleash something that they probably shouldn't have. It's basically the first Harry Potter book, But I'm really excited. It looks super cute. You can see the artwork is really, really enchanting. And I love the theme. I love the whole trope of kids unleash a huge disaster that they couldn't have possibly foreseen and then have to try to rein it in. That's one of my favorites. Vast is probably the sleeper hit of the convention. It's also our indie spotlight game for the month, which is awesome. It is a very, very asynchronous game. Each player is playing a totally different role. One player is the knight, one is the dragon, one is a horde of goblins, I think, and the final player is actually playing the cave that the knight has to venture into. It seems really interesting. I know it's been getting some mixed things. It's not very heavy, so that does not appeal to everyone, but I'm very, very excited to finally get to try this one. Evolution Climate is a standalone expansion to the Evolution board game. It makes you deal with climate change as part of your, I don't know, evolving, trying to become the apex predator. This is actually the conversion kit, so we have the base game of Evolution. You can add this to it to incorporate the expansion, but you can also buy the expansion separately. Elevenses is a cute little game about serving tea. It's charming. I played the one-player version, which is totally not official, totally third party, but it was really, really cute. So we picked up, this is like the real game, so I'm gonna try it. Swipe Out is a dexterity game that Ryan actually chose to pick up, which is unusual because he normally avoids dexterity games like the plague. But in this one, you have a little grid in front of you with these little chits on them, and you flip over a card. The card has a pattern on it. You have to get your little chits out of the way to have the remaining ones match that pattern. And then the first player to do that and grab the rubber ducky in the middle is the winner for that round, at least. It seems interesting. It seems kind of cute. It's definitely a kid's game, so it's super light. Hopefully that means it's not super challenging. I don't know. This is one I'm curious to see him play it because it is so unusual for him to actually want a dexterity game. Assassin Con is obviously a very aggressive game. You are all assassins trying to eliminate each other. It's supposedly very strategic, and it's a very interesting name. A lot of people have asked us questions about it just because of the name alone. I want to try it. I'm not convinced that this is going to be a good match for me because I don't tend to like a lot of like in-your-face aggressive tactics in games, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Mare Nostrum Atlas is an expansion to Mare Nostrum, which we talked about in the previous video, I think. It has a lot of stuff. So there's a new board, there's a 6th player expansion, there are new heroes, there's a lot of other like little stuff too. We haven't played the base one yet, or at least I haven't. I'm not sure about Ryan, so I think we're probably gonna hold off on adding this to it because we tend to prefer to play the base game like vanilla before we bring in anything else. I'm really excited for this one, though, because the expansion looks so pretty. Guilds of London is an area control or area influence, I guess, kind of game that was a huge hit at Origins. So I know some of our friends have it and they rave about it. That always makes me want to try a game just because I want to be able to join in the conversation. So you are trying to control one of the guilds of London. If you control the guild the best, better than all the other people control the guild, you become the mayor. Pretty cool. Pretty basic. Classic London stuff. Arboretum is the game that Ryan would not stop talking about because it's been out of print for a while and he was surprised that it is back in print and he was so happy, and I'm happy too, because this is a little game about building a tree museum. You build little lines of trees and try to get the most points, building the most, I guess, efficient but lengthy path between two trees. I played this horribly, horribly wrong the first time, like brutally wrong. So I'm excited to try it again because I haven't had a chance to play since then. I want to like redeem myself. Every year, the big, huge, gigantic Mayfair booth has a sale on a lot of their older titles. So we tend to go through it, and this year we came out with Monuments, which is a game about building ancient monuments. I do not know much more about it. I don't really know how it plays, but Ryan was really excited about it, so I'll give it a shot. And Johari, which is an action selection game about selling gems. I like games about gems. Speaking of games about gems, we also picked up this cute little tray for Splendor from Game Trays. So basically, once you put all your tokens and cards in there, you don't need to keep the box anymore, which is great because we have a lot of game boxes. Vikings on Board is a Viking game, obviously. You are trying to move ships full of Vikings. It reminds me a little bit of Imhotep in the whole ship thing, but unlike Imhotep, it's a little more aggressive, and a little more in your face about it. Whereas in Imhotep, you could block people, but there wasn't a lot you could do to directly influence other players. In Vikings on Board, there definitely is. It's still a family game, so it's not going to be too mean, but there's more of a take that mechanic to it than in some other games. Mombasa is the next title. This is a very heavy-looking Euro game. It's about diamond mining in Africa, which is hugely problematic. So I'm gonna see how they handle that in the game. You know, it's not that topics like that should never be dealt with, but you need to make sure you do it in an honest sort of way. We will definitely report back on this one because I'm always interested to see how games incorporate difficult things into them without doing it poorly. And I've heard, at least, I've heard that Mombasa does a good job of that, but, you know, don't quote me on that one yet. Haba! Okay. Space planets, I knew nothing about until yesterday when I saw a picture of it and I was like, oh my god, that's the cutest game ever. Ryan, can we get this game? And he's like, yeah, we already got that game. So Space Planets is just adorable. It's an adorable little Haba game. There is a little ship that looks like a snail. I love it. I don't know how it plays. It doesn't even matter. Who cares? It's a cute little Haba game. Prospectus is a very, very eye-catching game because it uses this, well, I guess dice tower, but for cubes, so cube tower, but it's not really a tower. It's more like a crystal ball. So you might have seen pictures of this one because it's so photogenic. You are trying to cast spells or potions or whatever, magic stuff, and you dump the little cubes into the crystal ball, but things don't always come out the way you had hoped they would. I'm really, really fascinated by all of the new dice tower, cube tower things that games are trying, and I just love them. They make the whole game just look more fun. So we're definitely going to be playing this soon. Hopefully we'll be able to bring it to a convention or two, because these are games that always do really, really well at cons, because everyone walking by wants to see what you're doing. Brains is a little puzzle game. It's the first in a series of similar games. It is all about making a path from point A to point B. It's a single player game, so it is really more like a puzzle than a traditional game, but I don't like to get too bogged down in the dividing line between games and puzzles or games and toys or, God, games and art, don't even. So it's a game. And it looks fun, and it looks very clever. I'm going to try it and probably get the next ones in the series too. I hope that they are all sufficiently different that they can keep my interest, but each one comes with like 50 different puzzles in it. So hopefully there's enough variety in there to make it worth your time. Agility is a two-player only game, but unlike most two-player only games, it's not a tactical war game. It's a game about training your dogs to run through an agility course, and while it's very simple, it has more strategy to it than it initially seems, especially once you are both comfortable with the game and the rules. I have had a chance to play this now, and it's really cute. Plus, each dog has its own little separate colored meeple that match like perfectly, And I love that. There's a lot of attention to detail in this game, which comes across and makes the whole experience kind of fun. Retreat to Darkmoor is a game that we actually previewed a while ago, so it's always cool to see those in finished final form. It is a game where you are the bad guy, and you were invading a castle, but then the heroes struck back, and now you are fleeing. The whole game is about trying to get your villains across the finish line, essentially, while the heroes are trying to pick them off at the end of the line. It was clever and puzzly. I think it's one of those games you need to play like several times before you can really figure out what you're doing and what the best strategy is, even though it is a small, kind of simple game. Innis is a huge game. It is a card drafting strategy game about being a Celtic leader. The fun thing about this is that it wasn't actually supposed to be at Gen Con initially, but they were able to get in a few copies and we were able to get one. Ryan loves the art. It's very like old school RPG, so I'm sure that we'll be trying this one soon. He's kind of been talking about it a lot. Iki is a game set in feudal Japan in Edo, and you are playing as shopkeepers who are trying to boost the, I guess, resources of everyone around you, boost the value of your whole neighborhood in order to fulfill your own mission of selling your stuff. It seems really interesting, and I like the idea of kind of lifting up everyone around you in order to lift yourself up. I think that that's not something we see in a lot of Western board games. So this one seems interesting and I want to try it. Also, the art is really pretty. Myth is a game about myths and mice. Myth. In this game, an evil dragon, I believe, has stolen the sacred cheese, and you must go on a quest to get it back. And honestly, that's all I know about it, and that's all I need to know, because that's adorable. And lately, in case you haven't noticed from this video, I've been really into games that are just in some way cute, or visually appealing, or thematically appealing. This definitely fits into at least one, but probably more of those categories. Something about those games is just really great for me in the summer when I'm kind of trying to like decompress. So I will definitely be trying this soon, if only to keep saying myth and explaining to everyone that it is because of mice and myth. Myth. Potion Explosion is a game that you also might have seen pictures of, kind of in the same way that Prospectus is. It's very visually eye-catching. So in this game, you are trying to build potions using these marbles that drop down out of this cute little cardboard machine. It feels almost like if you've played one of those like Bubble Breaker apps or one of the like, you know, Match 3 apps, it feels a little bit like that, but in like analog form, which I thought was really interesting. You'll notice I'm only holding the box cover here because the box itself, if you tilt it sideways, all the marbles go everywhere. And while I'm sure I'm going to make that mistake at some point in the future, I didn't today. Quartz is a very light card game about a bunch of dwarves who have discovered a new mine and they decide that it's time to place a bet. The first dwarf who can get the most gems out of the mine wins. I've heard that the game can be very, very random, but I've also heard that from a lot of people who kind of hate any level of randomness in their games. So I'm not sure if that's just a mismatch of player and game or if there is actually just too much randomness to Quartz. We shall see. I don't tend to hate all randomness, but I do like for it to be controlled somehow. And I think Ryan dislikes it probably even more than I do. But we have friends who are super into that kind of thing. So maybe we'll get kind of a mixed group together and see how everyone's opinions differ. Hit Z Road is a zombie game, but it's a more satirical take on your traditional zombie fare. In this game, the Zpocalypse has hit and you are trying to, I don't know, get to Sanctuary, but like via Great American Road Trip. So that seems interesting. The box is really clever. I'm not sure if this is like the final box art and cover, but I hope so because it's really eye-catching. It's primarily a card game. There is a board. All of the players are, in their separate cars trying to race to get to safety as fast as possible. I'm not a huge fan of the title, honestly. Hit Zero doesn't exactly like roll off the tongue, but it is thematically appropriate, so I will give them that. 8 Epics is a cooperative dice rolling game for like 1 to 8 players. It's interesting because it's a very small game, but it still gives you a solo variant, so that's pretty cool. The funny thing about this one is that it was given to Ryan by AEG because he explained to them how he really shouldn't take any dice games. He really didn't want to buy any or get any review copies because he's so bad at rolling dice that when he wants to roll low, he rolls high, and when he wants to roll high, he rolls low. So, chuckling, they gave him this, and I am going to make him play it and report back. Century Saga is a cooperative 4X game, which you don't normally see at all. You are banding together with your other players to stave off raiders and try to control the galaxy. It seems really interesting. You don't normally see cooperative games that are big space exploration and conquering style. It also is kind of cool because it plays in 60 to 90 minutes, which is much shorter than your usual game in this genre. Mexica is a new edition of a much older game. So it's interesting because you are city building, but you are city building in Aztec Mexico. You're also building temples to get points. I am really into city building games, and I'm also really into city building games that aren't set in like Western Europe. So I can't wait to try this one. Ice Cool is our final game, and it was probably the other sleeper hit of Gen Con. It is a dexterity game, which, as I've mentioned, tend to not be our usual fare, but Ryan wanted this one too, mostly because it has adorable penguins in it. In this game, you are flicking your little penguins throughout this like igloo setup, and you can make them jump over walls, and if you're really good at it, you can make them go through like different doorways all at once. It seems really neat. That's pretty much it. Like, this game, everyone was talking about it and everyone was playing it and carrying copies around, so I was excited that we got one of our own. I also picked up some random things like this super adorable octopus picture and a whole lot of books. I got a ball of moss that lives inside a light bulb. I got some seashells. I don't do Gen Con like the way a lot of people do Gen Con. I tend to just focus on the strangest things I can possibly find, and I get those. But obviously we also got a ton of games. So give us a minute. We're gonna stack these up and see if they're taller than me. I figure you can probably guess. I wish putting away my games was always that easy. That was our Gen Con haul. We got a lot of stuff, and it's gonna take us a while to now go put them back on the appropriate shelves. Until we are back in front of you again, thank you so much for watching. It has been our pleasure to have you here. And if you like what you see, please subscribe and hit that little thumbs up down below. Also, leave us a comment with anything you picked up at Gen Con or any of the other conventions you've had a chance to go to this summer. We would love to hear it. If you did Gen Can't instead, super cool. Let us know what you played. We will be back, I think, at the end of the month with another haul video of just games we got that weren't Gen Con related. So wish us luck with that. Bye, guys.